On the day of the grand wedding, my elder sister fled and I was forced to take her place. My husband joyfully lifted the bridal veil, but his smile froze on his face. I stopped him as he turned to leave and set 3 rules with him. First, taking her place was not my wish. I hope you will investigate the truth and not blame the wrong person. Second, he and I are only a fake couple. After 3 years, we will divorce. Third, before the divorce, he must give me the respect I deserve. My husband agreed. 3 years passed very quickly. He has lived up to the ideal of a modest gentleman. I, too, have fulfilled the role of a dignified matriarch. We both tacitly agreed that life would go on like this. But then my elder sister returned. She fainted before her husband's sedan chair, clutching the token of their love in her hand. Her husband sent her to the clinic, then turned and left with a flick of his sleeve. He told me that the past is in the past and what is gone is truly gone. But my elder sister was determined to make it up to him. She clung to him, kneeling and begging, praying for his blessings, embroidering handkerchiefs for him, and hand-copying out-of-print books for him, heedless of the gossip spreading through the entire city. On the day the 3-year term ended, my husband suddenly asked me, living such an ordinary life day after day, "Will you be content?" I replied calmly, "No, I am not content. So, let us divorce." I took out the prepared divorce agreement. Xie Jiaosong's fingers trembled as he held the thin sheet of paper, the corners of his eyes reddening, his gaze filled with disbelief. "Qingxian, you had this ready all along." "Not really. I have also wavered before. But the day Li Qingyu returned, I made up my mind. I no longer want to live a life where I am constantly being chosen or rejected. What I want is unwavering commitment, with only me and no one else. He can't give it, then I'll give it to myself. I will always choose only myself," I said on the day my elder sister returned. "You carried her to the clinic. Do you know how others looked at me after you left?" Xie Jiaosong was stunned for a moment, a trace of guilt spreading across his face. "I'm sorry, but at that moment, lives were at stake and I didn't think too much." I cut him off and said coldly, "Xie Jiaosong, I don't care about rumors and gossip. What I care about is that you broke your promise first, making me lose face in front of others, and I swore I would never let myself be wronged." My gaze was fixed and steady. His face turned pale. We all know which incident I'm referring to. On the day of the grand wedding, when Xie Jiaosong lifted the bridal veil and saw it was me, he was both disappointed and furious. He turned to leave, but I grabbed his sleeve, insisting on clarifying things with him. Being married off in someone else's place was never my choice. If you want to blame anyone, you should find out the truth instead of taking it out on me unfairly. I've already been wronged enough by being forced into this marriage. I can't bear anyone's baseless accusations. I dragged him to meet my parents. My parents were ashamed and stammered, unwilling to say that my elder sister had run away. They only said that she had suddenly disappeared and that there was no choice but to have me marry in her place. It was I who saw my younger brother hesitating to speak and goaded him into telling the truth. My elder sister had eloped with the Prince of Chen's heir on the night before the wedding. My parents had no choice but to force me onto the bridal sedan chair. They kept apologizing to Xie Jiaosong, speaking words of helplessness. Mother said she had tried to persuade my elder sister, who had clearly agreed, but no one expected her to flee the night before the wedding. Father, on the other hand, hoped Xie Jiaosong would keep it a secret to avoid disgracing both families, and also because if my elder sister ever returned, she would not be able to hold her head up. When Xie Jiaosong left my home, he walked dejectedly down the long alley like a dog abandoned by its owner. I followed behind him, my thoughts drifting aimlessly. They kept talking about my elder sister, worrying about her. No one asked me how I was supposed to face a man who was supposed to become my brother-in-law only to suddenly become my husband overnight. After a long while, Xie Jiaosong stopped walking. He looked at me with a complicated gaze and said softly, "Qingxian, you've been wronged. Today, don't worry. I won't let you suffer any more injustice in the future." At that moment, I was stunned. I think just for him saying that, it was worth me staying in the Xie family for 3 years. I said calmly, "Thank you. I don't consider it a loss, either. I'll take it as repaying my parents' upbringing." Xie Jiaosong thought I was just saying polite words, But I wasn't. Since childhood, I've been very clear about my place in the family. No one knows that my greatest dream is to leave that home. So, when my parents forced me into the bridal sedan chair, I threatened to die and managed to secure a document for myself. The document contained 3 terms. First, by marrying in my sister's place, I would have repaid my parents for raising me, and from then on, their well-being in passing would have nothing to do with me. Second, if my elder sister were found, my parents must keep her in check and not let her bother me again. Third, if I divorced Xie Jiaosong, my parents must not interfere with my marriage or remarriage thereafter. I did not tell Xie Jiaosong any of this. He and I were not close and I had no desire to hear any of his opinions. 2. After returning to the residence, I set 3 ground rules with him. First, this marriage by proxy was not my choice. He did not wish to marry, nor did I wish to be wed. We were forced together for the sake of both families' honor. So, let us not harbor resentment toward each other. Second, after 3 years, I would divorce him. We were a fake couple, so there was no need to make the pretense real. Third, before the divorce, he was to give me the dignity befitting a legitimate wife. He agreed. I added one more condition that includes when my elder sister returns. At that time, he was probably filled with resentment and said with certainty, naturally. But when he saw my elder sister, he broke his promise. She merely bumped lightly against the front of his sedan chair, and he lost his composure, hurriedly calling for the chair to stop, then picked her up and took her to the clinic. I stepped down from another sedan chair, watching the scene indifferently, letting people's gazes, whether sympathetic, mocking, or scornful, fall upon me. Now, he tells me it was a matter of life and death, that he had no choice. I said calmly, Xie Jiaosong, do you know that on the day of the substitute marriage, I argued with my parents? I said we could explain the situation to your family and call off the engagement, taking the blame upon ourselves. We could have sought your opinion first, arranged for my elder sister's dowry maid to take her place temporarily, letting her pose as my sister, and then slowly find my sister and explain everything to you. But my parents thought neither option was good and insisted that I take my sister's place. I didn't understand why at the time, but now I'm starting to get it. In their hearts, they were actually holding on to a sliver of hope. What if my elder sister and the Prince of Chen's heir could make it work? What if the Prince of Chen's heir truly loved my sister and would marry no one else? Then our family could leap from being minor 6th-rank officials to becoming relatives of the imperial family. That day, you also harbored a glimmer of hope, didn't you? You could have clearly asked a maid to support your elder sister, or sent a servant to fetch a doctor, or you could have simply let me settle your elder sister onto the sedan chair and carry her there. With so many people at your disposal, you insisted on doing it yourself. Were you trying to see if your elder sister regretted it? The man she chose abandoned her, yet you took her to seek medical treatment. That man is of low character, while you are of noble integrity. The contrast between you is clear. Did your elder sister's regret please you? Seeing her beg you bitterly these past days, regretting her initial actions, has the resentment in your heart subsided a little? Your heart is unsettled. You've begun to feel that this ordinary life, this ordinary wife, is no longer worthy of the esteemed Lord Xia, now so sought after by others. I'll grant your wish. The divorce agreement is here. Sign it. With a loud thud, Xie Jiaosong slammed his hand heavily on the table, a surge of shame and anger spilling from his eyes. Enough. The room was filled with silence. No one spoke. I drank the hot tea to soothe the chill in my heart. Under what circumstances does a person become furious from embarrassment? Probably when the truth hits home. Xie Jiaosong said, divorce is a major matter. I need to inform my mother. He fled in panic. I watched his retreating figure, his blue robe disheveled and hasty, just like the day he first learned he had been abandoned. Soon, my mother-in-law invited me over. She and I sat in the flower hall, drinking tea in silence. After a long moment, she let out a long sigh. He doesn't know how to cherish his blessings. Xie Jiaosong's mother, Lady Chen, was a woman of strong opinions. When she first learned of the substitute marriage, even though Xie Jiaosong had already accepted the matter, She still took me back to the Lee family for another visit. She got straight to the point. Miss Lee, the second daughter, is a good girl, but also an ill-fated one. She was sold off by her own parents, and that's not her fault. Our Xia family won't make things difficult for her. However, your Lee family must write me a written statement clearly explaining this matter. I don't want to find out one day that Miss Lee, the eldest daughter, has returned and claims that her younger sister stole her marriage. By then, our Xia family and Miss Lee, the second daughter, won't be able to clear our names no matter how much we talk. If you write the statement, I'll accept the substitute marriage. Otherwise, I'll go straight to the capital magistrate's office and beat the drum, saying that the Prince of Chen's heir has abducted my daughter-in-law. Then, we'll all have to defend the Prince of Chen together and die together. This kind of written pledge is simply a handle against us. How could we possibly make it? Father and mother absolutely refused and kept giving me meaningful glances. I lowered my head, pretending not to see. It seemed they could never remember that I no longer had any connection with them. Lady Chen said, "Since you are unwilling to make a vow, then forget about the marriage substitution. My son may accept it, but I will not. I will go and strike the complaint drum right now before Prince Chen can blame me. I will find a way to destroy your Lee family first." This was a threat. My parents relented and were forced to write a written pledge. As they left, my mother could not control herself and struck me with furious fists. "It's all your fault for being useless. You can't even handle a man." I stepped back and admitted frankly, I'm not as useful as my elder sister handling two men at once. Mother flew into a rage and tried to slap me. Lady Chen pulled me aside and shielded me behind her. She said coldly, "She is now a daughter-in-law of the Xia family, and it's not your Lee family's place to discipline her. Even if she needs to be disciplined, it shouldn't be done in front of me." "Who exactly are you dissatisfied with? Speak clearly." The anger on Mother's face twisted into an awkward smile. From then on, the Xia and Lee families completely fell out. On the third day of the return visit, knowing my parents' temper, I had no intention of going back and only sent a maid to check on the situation. When the maid returned, she said angrily, there was no one at home. The doorman said the master and madam had gone to the temple early in the morning to burn incense and pray for the eldest young lady. Hearing this, I was not surprised. After that, I never returned to the Lee family again and stayed 3 years in the Xia family. Lady Chen treats me extremely well. I was willing to listen to her words. My attachment to the Xia family was largely because of her. She truly was a wonderful mother. Lady Chen let out a long sigh. Back then, I never liked Li Qingyu. Though she was strikingly beautiful, her temperament was too flighty. She was a fun companion for play and amusement, but as the head of the household, she couldn't settle down. But when I was young, I was forced by my parents to marry, and I became a resentful couple with your father-in-law for a lifetime. It wasn't until he passed away that I finally let go of that knot in my heart. I didn't want Jiaosong to suffer the same pain I did, so I agreed to the marriage. Then came the elopement incident. Alas, people always swing from one extreme to another, always thinking that the path not taken is the better one. Now it seems which path is the right one depends on the person, not the path. If the person is right, even if you take the wrong path, you can still find your way back. Jiaosong is unwilling to accept this now. He wants to taste what he's never eaten before. One day he will regret it, and when he regrets it. Her eyes were fixed on me, filled with hope yet tinged with reluctance. I said softly, "Mother, an arrow shot has no turning back. If someone always covers for him, he will never learn to grow up." Lady Chen's figure seemed to stoop even more. She was silent for a long time, then set down the teacup in her hand, her strength drained. "What will you do after I have him sign the divorce agreement?" "I'll register as the head of a female-headed household, then leave this place and make a modest living through some small trade." In my first year in the Xia family, I was constantly preparing for the divorce. I practiced my skills, engaged in small business, and made a thorough assessment of everyone I could turn to, considering where I should settle down. In my second year in the Xia family, my mother-in-law cherished me, the servants respected me, and Xia Jiaosong held me in esteem. My resolve to leave began to waver a little. In my 3rd year with the Xie family, I thought it would be fine if life continued like this. Forever. Having such a family wasn't so bad. But Li Qingyu returned. Xie Jiaosong became different, and my dream came to an end. Flowers in a mirror and the moon's reflection on water will ultimately come to nothing. In the end, one must still face reality. I will never again let myself fall into a pit like Li Qingyu. Li Qingxian should have her own life. Xie Jiaosong knelt in his mother-in-law's courtyard all night. He wanted to take Li Qingyu as a concubine, but his mother-in-law refused and punished him by making him kneel and reflect. Cold dew and clear frost dampened the temples. In the 1st year of my marriage to Xie Jiaosong, he was also punished by his mother-in-law to kneel. At that time, his mother-in-law accidentally learned that we had never consummated the marriage. She flew into a rage, thinking Xie Jiaosong still harbored feelings for Li Qingyu, and punished him by making him kneel outside to reflect. It was I who knelt with him and explained to his mother-in-law that this was my wish. His mother let out a long sigh and told us to rise. She said earnestly to Xie Jiaosong, "Now can you see who is truly willing to stand by you through hardship?" Xie Jiaosong was silent. On the way back, under the clear breeze and bright moon, layers of tree shadows swayed. He suddenly said softly, "Qingxian, I need some time to forget her. Otherwise, I feel it would be disrespectful to you." I softly hummed in acknowledgement, feeling respected, an experience I had never had before. I thought to myself, he is an open and easygoing person, truly worthy of the reputation of a modest gentleman. My sense of security in the Xie family grew a little stronger at that time. We could be considered to be in the same boat, weathering the storm together. But now I walk past him without a sideways glance, heading to my mother-in-law's room to help her get out of bed. Since I'm about to leave, I want to be as kind as possible to those close to me. After all, the mountains are high and the waters are far. It won't be easy to come back in the future. When my mother-in-law saw me, a look of sorrow appeared in her eyes. "It seems you've truly let go, Qingxian." I knew he would regret it, but there was nothing I could do. In this world, 8 or 9 out of 10 things don't go as we wish. At my age, I thought I had already come to terms with that. But when it comes to my children, I still can't let go. Children are nothing but debts. I helped her get dressed and wash up, thinking silently, my parents are also too attached to worldly views. Otherwise, they would have long since taken Li Qingyu back home, locked her inside, sent her to a temple, or found someone to marry her off to. They couldn't bear to part with my elder sister, but they could bear to part with me. I had a meal with my mother-in-law. When I was leaving, Xie Jiaosong tugged at my sleeve. His dark eyes were bright, resolute, and earnest. "Qingxian, let's not divorce. I'll take Li Qingyu as a concubine. From now on, it will just be the 3 of us. I swear." I pulled back my sleeve, my expression indifferent. "I don't believe you, and I just want to live a life without Li Qingyu. She is your elder sister. So what? You are sisters. So what?" An awkward silence fell. The anger I had been suppressing burst forth all at once. Who protects and loves me? My sister. Who supports and helps me? My sister. Who gives me good advice and wishes for my success? My sister. But Li Qingyu, she hits me, scolds me, insults me, harms me, makes me take the blame for her mistakes, reaps the benefits while I bear the infamy, and when she acts willfully and runs off, I have to suffer the consequences of her misdeeds. What kind of sister is she? Xie Jiaosong's hand weakly released my sleeve, disbelief in his eyes. 3 years. I thought it was all in the past. Ha! You're magnanimous. You've moved on, but I haven't. I let out a cold laugh, unable to hide the sarcasm. A surge of overwhelming anger consumed me, and I couldn't help blurting out, "Xie Jiaosong, I truly hate how you fail to appreciate the blessings you have. You're like the aristocrat who asks why the starving don't just eat meat. Your mother-in-law only gave birth to you. You've lived in luxury, wanting for nothing. If you wished for the stars, no one would give you the moon. Every thought and desire of yours is fulfilled at every moment. You have no idea how much someone like me, born with a void, longs for something that belongs entirely and solely to me. Something I don't have to fight or compete for. Something that doesn't require anyone's permission. Something that is, by its very nature, completely and utterly mine. My parents pushed me off to your place, and you hate Li Qingyu. I thought that even if we couldn't be husband and wife, we could at least be allies. But you just had to put me in a position where I have to constantly argue and fight with others, and become a laughingstock to everyone. Xie Jiaosong, I truly want you to experience what it's like to have to compete and fight with others. To feel utterly wronged, yet still be accused of being petty. Making me your wife and taking Li Qingyu as your concubine, you have your beautiful wife and beloved concubine in your arms. Your ambitions fulfilled. Your life complete. But what about me? Am I not worthy of having a husband whose heart and eyes are filled only with me? Am I not worthy of a harmonious and happy home? Should my suffering be forgotten? Should my dreams be buried? Should I go against my own heart just to fulfill your wishes? Xie Jiaosong, what great kindness have you shown me to deserve such a sacrifice from me? You have done me no favor, and Li Qingyu has shown me no virtue either. Neither of you is worthy of any concession from me. I turned and left with a sweep of my sleeve, my footsteps heavy, as if I were trampling all my grievances into the ground. These words have been buried in my heart for so many years. Was I saying them to Xie Jiaosong? No, I am wailing for myself. I can't say these words to my parents. If I did, they would only say I'm too calculating. I cannot say to Li Qingyu that those who take advantage will never admit to doing so. Even less can I say to my young brother, he is the youngest in the family, showered with affection. Someone who has never lacked anything cannot understand the drought of those who do. I could only keep it bottled up inside, thinking that one day when I grew up and left home, I could live freely and to my heart's content. But before that day came, I was shoved into a bridal sedan chair and became Xie Jiaosong's wife. Fate has been unfair to me. That is heaven's fault. But if I resign to it, that would be my own fault. Li Qingxian can have her spine broken, but even if she has to crawl, she will crawl out of this courtyard. That night, Xie Jiaosong personally delivered the divorce agreement. His eyes slightly lowered, his slender fingers gently and reluctantly placing the thin piece of paper on the table. Qingxian, I'm sorry. I always thought that living with sisters would be better than living with strangers. I never considered your difficulties. My heart was full of words, but I couldn't say them as I looked at him. I had always thought that he and I could truly understand each other, but now I realize that we cannot. He was born complete. The only thing he lacked was Li Qingyu. If she were added, his life would be like a full moon. But I have always known that I am an empty cup drained of water. Only when I am filled to the brim and overflowing will I be willing to give to others. Otherwise, I can't help but hold a grudge against whoever the water from my cup. I cannot forget the feeling of nearly dying of thirst. I said calmly, a stepmother is still a mother, yet some despise her. A stepfather is still a father, yet some resent him. Cousins on both sides are all brothers, yet there are degrees of closeness. The scholars in the courtyard are all teachers, yet you will respect one and not another. Since all are women, why do you favor only Li Qingyu? Xie Jiaosong, you cannot even do what you preach, so you should not use it to persuade others. I accepted the letter of divorce and placed it in a box. These 3 years of mine amount to nothing more than this single sheet of paper. Xie Jiaosong stared at me blankly, his voice carrying a solemnity I had never heard before. He said, Qingxian, it seems I have never truly understood you. In 3 years' time, if he had wanted to understand me, he could have always found a way. But he was unwilling. He was immersed in his own past, unwilling to spend time and effort getting to know an insignificant person. After my elder sister came of age, matchmakers began visiting to propose marriages. When they saw my elder sister, they beamed with smiles, confidently guaranteeing that they could find her a good family, saying she was destined for a high-status marriage. When their eyes fell on me, they would say, the second young lady is quite sturdy. The second young lady of the Li family, plain in appearance and unremarkable in talent, could not bring honor to her parents. When our parents took us out, they would go out of their way to praise our elder sister for her beauty and our younger brother for his intelligence. Over time, the reputation of our elder sister's beauty and our younger brother's cleverness spread, while I ended up with a name for being neither pretty nor smart, but also competitive. disrespectful to my elder sister, and unloving toward my younger brother. That was when I understood. People are shallow. They don't have the time or energy to truly get to know another person. Instead, they rely on hearsay and learn about others through the words of those around them. My parents' words shaped the reputations of the three of us siblings. Only they gave our eldest sister and younger brother good ones, while I was left with the bad. Their favoritism is not my fault. Apart from not being good-looking, Li Qingxian is actually a wonderful girl. She has a kind heart and knows to save a bite of food for the beggar at the back door. She avoids creating discord with her words and rarely speaks maliciously. She is thrifty and diligent in managing the household, cooks very well, and knows how to budget carefully in daily life. Most remarkably, she has self-awareness and knows exactly what kind of life she wants to lead. But these virtues are invisible to others, as everyone only sees a small part of the picture. Xie Jiaosong was once good, too. He had seen my grievances, but like everyone else, he merely stopped there with no interest in understanding a seemingly ordinary Li Qingxian. People love blooming flowers. There is nothing wrong with that. I also love blooming flowers, but one should not trample on the tender blade of grass beneath the blossoms. The grass is innocent and should also be cherished. Seeing that I did not reply, he added, "The divorce papers have been sent to the government for filing, but it will take some time before they are processed. Mother said you intend to establish a household under your own name. Do you not plan to return to the Li family? That is my own affair, and it does not require your concern." Yun master. A gentle breeze drifted in through the window, and my heart was filled with profound tranquility. Xie Jiaosong, however, seemed deeply affected. His voice was bitter as if he had tasted coptis. "Qingxian, call me Li Qingxian." My gaze was sharp and unwavering as I looked directly at him, cold and ruthless. I began to count my dowry, preparing to move. Thanks to the fact that I was the eldest daughter when I married, my parents had given me a generous dowry. Later, when I married in my sister's place, all of that dowry became mine. During these years in the Xie residence, I managed my affairs well, and my dowry only increased, never decreased. Dowry items were carried out of the Xie mansion one after another, drawing a crowd of onlookers. Did she get a divorce? Poor second Miss Li. It's all because of her elder sister's doing. Having a sister like that is just terrible luck. In the crowd, Li Qingyu rushed out and blocked the people carrying the dowry. With reddened eyes, she scolded, "These are the dowries my parents gave me. Where are you taking them?" This was the second time I had met Li Qingyu since she returned. She was clever enough to know she should deal with Xie Jiaosong first before provoking me. Now that I am divorced, she must be secretly pleased that she has succeeded in her first step. I raised my hand and slapped her across the face. "Your dowry. If it's your dowry, then why am I the one marrying into the Xie family and not you?" Li Qingyu covered her face, stunned. "You hit me. How dare you hit me?" I slapped her again. "So what if I hit you? Are you someone who can't be hit? Are you more precious than others? Or are you hoping someone will stand up for you?" I pressed closer step by step and she retreated until she suddenly fell to the ground, covering her face, tears welling in her eyes like a rain-soaked pear blossom, delicate and fragile. "If I hadn't known back then that you had feelings for Xie Jiaosong, why would I have run away from home? My own sister falling for my future brother-in-law, I couldn't accept it. So I left in anger and let you slip in and become Mrs. Xie. Li Qingxian, I know I can never win against you. Now I'm disgraced and ruined. Are you satisfied?" The crowd buzzed with noise. A chill settled in my heart. When I raised my hand again, someone firmly grabbed my wrist. "Enough. Li Qingxian, enough." I looked back and saw Xie Jiaosong. His expression was dazed, as if suddenly understanding everything in disbelief. I asked, "You believe it?" He closed his eyes in contemplation, and when he opened them again, there was a firm resolve in his gaze. "Let this matter end here. Do not stir up any more trouble." I let out a cold laugh and, without hesitation, raised my hand and slapped Xie Jiaosong across the face. "Are you saying my reputation doesn't matter? That being falsely accused doesn't matter? You want me to stop just because you say so? Let me say it again. Xie Jiaosong, you have no kindness toward me, and Li Qingyu has no virtue toward me. I will not make any concessions for either of you. I pulled a document from my bosom, ordered someone to restrain Li Qingyu, and stopped Xie Jiaosong. Then 3 loud-voiced old women read the words on the document word by word. Regarding the matter of substituting the bride in marriage, it was truly a last resort, since the eldest daughter eloped and could not be found despite extensive search. The second daughter was forced to take her place. To prevent future incidents where the eldest daughter might slander the second daughter for coveting her brother-in-law or frame her for leaving home, thereby damaging the reputation of both families, this document is hereby established as proof. Date. Signed by Li Qingyu, Li Jiaoxiao. Witnesses. Xie Qinxiao, elders of the Xie family. As soon as the document was produced, the entire room was stunned and immediately erupted into an uproar. Li Qingyu's face turned ashen. Xie Jiaosong's heart fell into utter desolation. He murmured, "How could I not know? You should ask yourself." I couldn't be bothered to explain the ins and outs to him. Once, his mother-in-law, Lady Qin, wanted to explain the situation to him, but at that time, he deeply hated Li Qingyu and said coldly, "I don't want to hear a single word about her from now on." He was arbitrary, hating with extreme hatred and loving with blind passion, always swinging from one extreme to another. Lady Qin grew angry and determined to let him face the consequences himself. Could not be bothered to say anything more today. He reaps what he sows. It serves him right. I then said, "Does it feel good to have people pointing at you?" The crowd's gazes fell on him, some shocked, some disgusted, some mocking. He looked around, his face gradually turning pale. His throat moved a few times, but in the end, he didn't utter a single word. It seemed he finally understood the humiliation I had felt when people stared and talked about me. He was finally feeling what I felt, but we no longer had anything to say to each other. Li Qingyu looked at Xie Jiaosong in panic. She leaned sideways, wrapped her arms around his leg, and pleaded with him pitifully and helplessly. Her eyes so sorrowful that she was a pitiful sight. "This is fake. You know. My parents favored her, which is why they wrote such a document. But how unjust this is for me." That day when I stormed off in anger, I left a note, clearly stating that it was because I found out my second sister had fallen for you and mistakenly blamed you, which is why I ran away from home. Who knew my parents would say such things about me? Brother Song, I don't care what others say. I only care about what you think of me. No matter what the world says, as long as you believe me, that's enough. Xie Jiaosong's eyes were complicated. His fingers clenched tightly, wanting to believe but not daring to under the watchful eyes of everyone. If he believed it, he would truly be a fool. But if he didn't believe it, he would have to completely cut ties with Li Qingyu, and he seemed unable to make up his mind. The threads of fate between him and Li Qingyu seemed to be perpetually intertwined. I looked at my parents among the crowd and said coldly, "Father, Mother, did you hear that? Li Qingyu says you favor me and helped me fabricate the truth to prove our innocence. I think we should settle this in court and see who is lying, you or Li Qingyu." My parents wavered unsteadily in the crowd. "Absolutely not." My parents hurriedly said in unison. Li Qingyu quickly turned her head and saw her parents. Her eyelids fluttered and she nearly fainted. My younger brother rushed toward me. "You wretch! How dare you bully my sister? How dare you bully my sister?" Several servants held him back, but his legs still struggled nonstop trying to kick me. I said coldly, "Am I not your sister?" My younger brother answered viciously, "What kind of sister are you? Eldest sister is my real sister. You're nothing but a maid, a jinx, an ugly monster, a troublemaker in the family. Ugly as you are, you still love to make a scene. Mother should have drowned you back then with a smack." I slapped him across the face. Mother rushed over, tightly shielding my younger brother, and raised her hand to slap me. Someone pulled me back a step, just barely dodging the slap. I turned my head and saw Lady Qin. Lady Qin coldly stared at my mother. "Since you won't admit it, let's settle this in court. We'll lay out the whole story from beginning to end and see who's really lying and whether that person dares to own up to it or can even protect you. We admit it. We admit it." Father closed his eyes in agony. "That document is real." Li Qingyu opened her eyes and, face flushed with anger, cried out, "Father, with that, Father turned and left. Mother also pulled my younger brother and fled in panic. Xie Jiaosong bent down. Li Qingyu looked at him with hope in her eyes and called out, "Brother Song, I knew you were the best to me." Xie Jiaosong, like a walking corpse, pried Li Qingyu's fingers off one by one. He stepped back, his gaze cold and hateful as he stared at her. "Li Qingyu, I feel like I've never truly known you." He then looked at me. "Qingxian," Lady Chen suddenly grabbed my hand and addressed the crowd. "Qingxian is a good girl. Back then, she was forced to marry into our Xie family in place of another, entering our home with reluctance. Over these 3 years, she has managed the household well, led the servants with skill, been filial to her mother-in-law, and treated the staff kindly. Yet, my son has never consummated the marriage with her, wasting a good girl's time. Today, I will adopt Qingxian as my goddaughter. I'll hold a banquet another day to formalize it and invite the neighbors for a drink. Please forgive the spectacle today. Qingxian, would you be willing to accept me as your godmother?" I looked up and saw tears glistening in her eyes. Suddenly, I understood her intention. She could no longer endure this turmoil. She would cut off all of Xie Jiaosong's escape routes, shatter every last illusion of his, so that he would stop pestering her endlessly and wasting her youth. One Li Qingyu had already cost the Xie family half their lives. Now, with another Li Qingxian, she would spend her entire life toiling for a son who could never see things clearly. Xie Jiaosong, how could he deserve such a good mother? I'm truly jealous. Fortunately, this mother is mine now. I want to compete with him, to fight him for her, and let him taste what it's like to be called petty. I dropped to my knees and bowed. "Mother, please accept this bow from your child." Xie Jiaosong was greatly startled. "Absolutely not." But I shook off his hand, kowtowed 3 times swiftly, stood up, and cast my gaze into the distance, where I spotted my parents hiding in a corner, their faces etched with a look of utter despair. What they looked down upon, others treasured like a precious gem. Would they doubt themselves? Would they feel a sense of loss? But none of that matters anymore. What they think doesn't matter to me now. I know what kind of path I have to walk. Lady Chen turned to look at Li Qingyu, who was still pitifully lying on the ground, and said coldly, "Beat her." Several maidservants and older female servants immediately set upon Li Qingyu. Lady Chen had long wanted to deal with Li Qingyu, but before, with Xie Jiaosong protecting her, she needed a reasonable pretext. Today, using my divorce as an excuse, she seized the chance to kick someone when they're down. She needed to vent her anger. And so did I. Xie Jiaosong stepped forward as if to shield Li Qingyu, but then seemed to think of something and turned to chase after Lady Chen. "Mother, you cannot recognize Qingxian as your daughter." Before he could finish, he received a resounding slap from Lady Chen. Lady Chen, after all, loved her son and held back until they were inside the courtyard gate before slapping Xie Jiaosong. Her voice was icy cold, concealing exhaustion and weariness. "You think you're worthy? If you had protected Li Qingyu just now and kept her from being beaten, I would have considered you consistent to the end. But you just stood by coldly. How could I have a son like you? Cherishing someone like a treasure when you like them, discarding them like worn-out shoes when you don't. Xie Jiaosong, you're exactly like your father." Xie Jiaosong stood frozen, covering his face. He instinctively looked at me, and I stared back at him, cold and contemptuous. Then he turned to Li Qingyu and saw the resentment in her eyes. He finally seemed to realize that he had been rejected by all 3 women. "How could this be? How could this be?" he murmured. I averted my gaze and focused on moving the dowry and checking the accounts. The crowd had already dispersed. Li Qingyu lay on the ground, barely breathing, glaring at me with hatred in her eyes, her voice faint and weak. "You did this on purpose." "I had no intention of coming today. It was only because I heard someone say that father and mother gave you a lot of dowry that I couldn't stand it and came to see for myself." "Li Qingxian, I am your sister. Do you have to hate me this much? My reputation is ruined. I just want to return to the one who loves me. I've already agreed to be a concubine. What more do you want?" I looked down at her, finding it somewhat amusing. "You came back to chase after Xie Jiaosong again. Is that your way of making it up to him?" "That's right. I know I've wronged him, which is why I tarnished my own reputation. I'd rather be cursed by others than let him lose face. What's wrong with what I did? Ha 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 ha. I burst into loud laughter, feeling nothing but sorrow. I reached out and lifted her chin, looking into her beautiful eyes, and said word by word, Li Qingyu, the person you've wronged the most is me. Why do you deserve to make it up to him instead of me? Why? Forced to look at me, the emotions in her eyes could no longer be hidden. She screamed in despair. It's just a marriage by proxy. What's the big deal? Is Xie Jiaosong not good enough for you? With your looks alone, could you marry someone like Xie Jiaosong on your own? Even if you married 10 times, you couldn't land someone like him. You're clearly the one getting the better deal. So, why aren't you satisfied? Why do you have to make everyone unhappy? Why? I suddenly had nothing to say. I couldn't bring myself to tell a stubborn and selfish person how she had ruined my life. Xie Jiaosong is talented and good-looking, but so what? He is not the one I love. Must I be bound for life to someone I don't love? If I were to fall in love with him, the thought that he once liked my sister would make me sick. If I don't love him, then I will have no love in my life. But why? Why is it that Li Qingyu gets to pursue love, while I am supposed to live a life devoid of passion and affection? Is it because my looks are plain that I don't deserve love? That I must wait around for others to pick and choose me? That I should accept a forced marriage and kneel in gratitude for the favor? Don't my soul, my feelings, and my thoughts matter at all? No, they matter greatly. My soul, my emotions, and my thoughts are all very important to me. Li Qingyu looks down on me, thinks she is nobler than me, and believes I deserve to be treated this way. But I will make her understand what it means to reap what she sows. I let go of her roughly and shoved her head to the side. My voice was very soft, yet it sounded like a curse. Li Qingyu, you will get what you deserve. You never treated me as a human being. So, you ended up meeting the Prince of Chen's heir, who doesn't treat you as one either. You will get what you deserve, and I'll be waiting to see your retribution come. After moving the dowry, I arrived at the new residence I had purchased myself. But my parents sent someone to question me. The messenger, not daring to look me in the eye, hurriedly relayed their words. The master and madam asked me to find out, do you still regard them as your parents? Why have you not returned to the Li family? If you still see them as your parents, then take your dowry and go back to the Li family. They will choose another good match for you. The master and madam promise that this time they will take your feelings into account, and you will be satisfied. I let out a light laugh and said calmly, help me pass along a message. What did she say? Get lost. The servant was stunned for a moment before realizing that the message I wanted to pass along was get lost. His expression filled with shock. He turned and fled. I had someone find a skilled forger, paid him extra, and rushed him to produce over 100 copies of 2 documents. One was the declaration of severance written by my parents disowning me. The other was a statement written by my parents to Lady Chen proving that my eldest sister had eloped. Then I scattered the copies all over the city. My father was impeached by the censor for failing to manage his household properly, causing unrest in the inner quarters and falling short of his duties as a father. As a result, his low-ranking 6th grade official post was revoked. My eldest sister, Li Qingyu, became the target of gossip. She hid at home, too afraid to go out, spending her days in despair and threatening to take her own life. My mother stormed over and wailed, calling me a curse on the family, saying she should have drowned me at birth. The maids and the elderly female servants spoke up for me out of a sense of injustice. How could there be such a mother? But I felt no ripples in my heart. My younger brother is foolish. He is far less clever than our parents claim. That day, when he blurted out those words cursing me as a jinx, I knew someone must have often said such things in his ear for him to utter them so readily. Now, I have found the source. I took a letter out from my chest. Madam Jiao, don't push me. The imperial censor doesn't seem to know who eloped with your elder sister yet, but I have here the letters exchanged between her and that person. If you provoke me too far, I will hand those letters over. Then we'll all be ruined together since death is certain anyway. Madam Jiao's face changed. How have you become like this? We are your parents. How can you be so ruthless and so calculating? Hearing that word again, my heart no longer ripples. Back then, when I first heard that my elder sister had eloped with the Prince of Chen's heir, I immediately ordered my maids to search her room. That was when I found these letters. At the time, all the maids and servants had been sent out to look for her, which gave me the perfect opportunity. I know my parents' character all too well. If they could force me to marry in her place back then, they would not hesitate to make me take the blame in the future. When I was a child, I played a game with my friends. Because I always won, that person probably harbored ill intentions and asked me a very malicious question. If you're fleeing a disaster and you're on a large ship, but the ship has a hole and you need to throw someone overboard to survive, who would you throw? On the ship are your father, mother, older sister, and younger brother. Who do you choose to throw? Hurry up and say it. No cheating. You're not afraid to throw someone, are you? Haha. Coward. I was indeed a coward. My mind went back and forth several times and I couldn't bear to part with a single one. My parents gave me life and raised me. Of course. I can't cast them aside. As hateful as my sister can be, she's still my sister and I don't want her to die. My younger brother is young and lovely. He must not die either. I thought it over and over in my heart and somehow felt that perhaps jumping down myself would be the best option. That way, they could live a little longer and maybe they would find a way to survive. My mind was in turmoil. I still hadn't figured it out, but that little companion seemed to have one. Clapping his hands and laughing, Li Qingxian, you coward. Pitiful and unloved. Don't you know, your sister and brother both chose to throw you off first. Nina, Nina, Nina. What does it matter if you beat me? Your family chose to throw you off. He ran off laughing. I went back crying. Mother looked at me and frowned. I don't know what's wrong with you. You don't even have a single good friend to play with. Unlike your sister, who's so likable that every time she comes home, her pockets are stuffed with treats. But you just come back with a face full of tears every single time. It's so annoying. I was stunned and all the words I had been holding back did not come out. Later, I finally mustered the courage to ask that question when my mother was in a good mood. If there's a boat that's about to sink and someone has to be thrown overboard for the rest to survive, who would you throw? Mother, sister, me, or little brother? Who would you choose? My mother thought for a moment, then suddenly glared at me with a vicious look and slapped me across the face. Who taught you to ask such questions? You're always looking for trouble. I got a beating, but I never got an answer. But many things that happened later made me realize that I would be the one thrown off the ship. My mother flew into a rage because the truth had hit home. She would abandon me, but she dared not admit her own coldness. My father would abandon me, too. He is even more heartless than my mother, more prone to compromise. So, from a very young age, I learned to protect myself, to know my own limits, to part with those closest to me, and to tell myself, Li Qingxian, you must love yourself. Otherwise, a little one like you, with no one to love you, would be far too pitiful. The letters between my elder sister and the Prince of Chen's heir are leverage in my hands, proof that I love myself well, no matter what others say. My mother walked away utterly dejected. I went to register as a household headed by a woman, but I need to have the divorce certificate filed first to prove that I am a single person before I can register as such. However, filing the divorce certificate takes a long time. Both Lady Chen and I spent money to ask for help in expediting the process, and we were only given a promise that it would be done within 7 days. I thought that would be acceptable. These 7 days will be busy enough for me first. Lady Chen plans to hold a family recognition banquet in 3 days. Also, after I settle my female household registration, I plan to leave the capital. So, I need to say goodbye to my close friends and relatives. On the eve of the recognition banquet, Xie Jiaosong stopped me. He looked haggard, with disheveled long hair and clothes thrown on hastily, as if he had left in a great rush. His weary, dull eyes stared at me, almost pleading. Qingxian, do not recognize my mother as your mother. If you do, there will be no chance for us anymore. After all this time, I have come to understand. Give me another chance. I promise. You promise what? I interrupted him, unwilling to listen any longer. I've noticed that some men can't be looked at closely or listened to. They can only be treated like a vase on display. If you examine them carefully or engage in conversation, they become irritating. I seem to understand a little now. Beauty doesn't seem invincible. It can quickly win favor, but for something to last a lifetime, beauty alone is not enough. But is beauty really unimportant? No. Beauty is a stepping stone. Just as the Prince of Qin would come to flirt with Li Qingyu under the cover of night, promising to marry her. And when Li Qingyu threw herself in front of Xie Jiaosong's sedan chair, she could force him to step down and carry her in his arms. But Chen Wang would never come to seduce me. He is a powerful figure I could never hope to climb up to in my lifetime. Although I have no intention of currying favor, when I see others taking shortcuts, I can't help but waver and feel envious. If I were to pull off a runaway bride stunt and then crash headfirst into Xie Jiaosong's sedan chair, he would probably grab me and demand I pay for the damage to his sedan chair, saying my blood had dirted it. Beauty is a gift from one's parents, and I was born without it. But I will work hard to cultivate my inner strength so that everyone who comes into my life becomes my benefactor. But Xie Jiaosong is not my benefactor. He is, like Li Qingyu, a ghost that drags people into the mud. I will not be with someone like him, I said coldly. Do you know what I regret the most? On our wedding day, I showed you mercy and didn't force you to sign a divorce certificate. As a result, I exhausted so much effort just to get a divorce from you. His body swayed as if he could barely stand from the blow. Was I not good to you these past 3 years? My mother-in-law has been very good to me, but have you truly been good to me? Have you ever cared about my basic needs? Food, clothing, shelter, or travel? Can a single gift from you be found in my luggage? Have you ever accompanied me to burn incense or go shopping? During holidays when we visit relatives, have you ever cared whether I know those relatives or whether I have been mocked by their words? Xie Jiaosong looked at me with despair in his eyes. He had done none of these things. Not a single one. Qingxian, I looked at him and delivered the final blow. But my mother-in-law did all these things with me. My elder sister slandered me and bullied me, and you grabbed my wrist telling me to stop. But my mother-in-law fought back for me, so I am willing to recognize her as my mother. I used to think that my wavering feelings, believing that life could go on like this, were because Xie Jiaosong was good, but over this period of time, I have come to understand that it was because of my mother-in-law, Lady Qin. She shielded Xie Jiaosong and me from gossip and rumors, holding up a sky for us with no storms or winds. Xie Jiaosong and I naturally treated each other with respect, but Li Qingyu's forceful return poked a hole in the protective shield my mother-in-law had built for us, and Xie Jiaosong revealed his true colors. He is actually quite selfish and lacks a sense of responsibility. He has had too smooth a life and has never truly grown up. On the day of the family recognition banquet, Lady Qin invited the neighbors and the elders of the Xie family. In front of everyone, I was officially entered into the Xie family genealogy and truly became Lady Qin's goddaughter. Everyone came to congratulate me. Lady Qin gave me many gifts, including some small gold bracelets and gold locks meant for infants. She said, these were prepared for the daughter I never got to have. Father Xia pushed me, and I fell to the ground, losing the child. She and Father Xia had always been an unhappy couple, so she vowed that in the future, she would respect her children's choices. Unfortunately, Xie Jiaosong never lived up to expectations. The lessons of past generations don't always apply to the present. Good child. You mustn't avoid seeing a doctor out of fear. Jiaosong may not be right for you, but one day you'll meet a good one. I lay my head on her lap, tilting it to look outside. This was an experience I had never had with my biological mother. My mother's lap belonged to my elder sister and younger brother, never to me. But now I have a lap of my own, one that can hold all my sorrows. All right, Mother. In the future, I will bring back the finest son-in-law for you to see. I'll buy a courtyard right next to yours and come back often to visit you. If my elder brother ever makes you angry, you can come and stay with me. I won't let you go back until he kneels and apologizes. How does that sound? Good. 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 You're truly my dear thoughtful daughter. Lady Qin was grinning from ear to ear. Xie Jiaosong watched us drinking cup after cup until he finally got himself drunk. I ordered someone to carry him back to the courtyard. A drunk man really stinks. With blurry drunken eyes, he grabbed my sleeve and called me Qingxian. I said calmly, "Brother, when I choose a husband in the future, I will never pick someone who is addicted to alcohol. I hate it most when he gets drunk and expects me to clean up after him. I've been exhausted all day and I want to rest, too. A man so inconsiderate is better off not being had." Xie Jiaosong's hand fell and a tear slid from the corner of his eye. On the 6th day, I hosted a small banquet at the restaurant, inviting my close friends and relatives. There weren't many people, but our relationships were all very strong. No one mentioned Li Qingyu or Xie Jiaosong in front of me. They only cared about what I would do in the future and how I would survive. They gave me advice and some secretly slipped me money. When I refused, they got anxious with me. Some people thought about introducing their brothers to me, but after thinking it over, they gave up. Forget it. None of them are worthy of you. I can't push you into a pit of fire just because I want to be with you. We laughed together and spent a wonderful day. On the way back, we encountered someone jumping into the river. As soon as I saw the figure from behind, I knew it was Li Qingyu. On the other side, Xie Jiaosong, with a grim expression, was trying to persuade Li Qingyu not to cause trouble. Li Qingyu was crying bitterly. Now my reputation is ruined. My parents hate me. My sister despises me and even my younger brother wishes I were dead. You clearly promised to take me as a concubine, but then you went back on your word. How am I supposed to go on living? You were the one who eloped first, Xie Jiaosong said, his expression extremely grim. Li Qingyu looked utterly innocent. But you had already forgiven me, hadn't you? Otherwise, why would you have agreed to take me as a concubine? Xie Jiaosong was left speechless, his mouth opening and closing repeatedly, unable to utter a single word for a long time. He finally tasted the bitterness of Li Qingyu twisting right and wrong. Clearly, Li Qingyu was the one at fault for eloping. Yet he had enjoyed her compensation, accepting the handkerchiefs she embroidered, the books she copied, and the peace talismans she prayed for to make amends. She had stirred up a storm throughout the town, and he had promised to take her as a concubine. In the eyes of everyone, that matter had already been settled, but he suddenly saw through Li Qingyu. He couldn't move past it. Yet the crowd didn't care. In the eyes of everyone, it was he, Xie Jiaosong, who had gone back on his word and lacked magnanimity. He looked around blankly, and upon seeing me, a glimmer of hope lit up in his eyes. But I only said calmly, "Brother, you need to be more magnanimous and not so petty. What's past is past." He looked as if struck by lightning. I turned and left. That day, when he advised me, his words were light and carefree. Now it was his turn to feel just how heavy this pain truly was. Xie Jiaosong, under the crowd's cheering, reluctantly agreed that if Li Qingyu would come down, he would take her as a concubine. Li Qingyu joyfully threw herself into his arms and kissed him in public. But Xie Jiaosong felt disgusted. He rushed to the side of the bridge and couldn't help vomiting. Li Qingyu let out a piercing scream. "You disgust me, Xie Jiaosong. You actually find me disgusting. You've gone too far." Xie Jiaosong had no strength left to answer her. He stared at my back as if trying to bore a hole through it. My girlfriends nudged me, unable to hide their worry. "Qingxian, once the household registration and procedures are done, you should leave quickly. I have a feeling this matter isn't over yet. Wait a few years until things calm down before you come back. It's not that I'm driving you away, but I believe a wise man does not stand beneath a crumbling wall." I held her hand. "I understand you mean well for me. I know." On the 7th day, the divorce agreement was finally filed. I hurried to register my own household as a single woman, only to be told that I would have to wait again, at least a month, at most 3 or 4 months. Reluctantly, I slipped them some silver, begging them to expedite the process. I truly couldn't bear to stay here any longer. After finishing these tasks, I went to visit Lady Chen. She fell ill. She was utterly disgusted by Li Qingyu. Upon learning that Xie Jiaosong couldn't withstand the pressure and intended to take Li Qingyu as a concubine, she collapsed from anger. The mere thought of sharing the same roof with her suffocates me. My husband ruined the first half of my life, and now my son might destroy the second half. I must have committed sins in my past life to deserve such punishment in this one. I held her hand and gently comforted her. Mother, think of it this way. You must have accumulated good deeds in your past life to have so many people in this life who remember your kindness. Li Qingyu is nothing to fear. Someone who eloped once will elope again. Lady Chen's eyes widened. I nodded lightly. I will not let Li Qingyu off. The grudge between her and me is far from over. While Li Qingyu was clinging to Xie Jiaosong for a shopping trip, I forged the handwriting of the Prince of Chen's heir and secretly slipped a small note to Li Qingyu. The note actually contained only a few simple words. Qingyu, my wife, how dare you betray me? Prince Chen was an extremely arrogant and selfish man. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done something as reckless as eloping with someone's daughter. But Li Qingyu happened to fall for his act, believing that this was what it meant to be possessed and loved. Thus, the more domineering his words, the more she was willing to believe them. That day, Li Qingyu was restless. After hastily browsing the shops, she dismissed Xie Jiaosong and found a visible tea house to sit down and drink tea. All day long, she sat upright, maintaining her composure, elegantly sipping tea while waiting for the arrival of the Prince of Chen's heir. Unfortunately, he did not come. The Prince of Chen's heir never showed up from start to finish. Li Qingyu felt deeply disappointed as she left. After returning, in order to take revenge on the Prince of Chen's heir, she forced Xie Jiaosong to quickly set a date for taking a concubine. She intended to use her own marriage to force the Prince of Chen's heir to appear. She wanted him to watch her get married and then be heartbroken. She was very naive, using her own marriage as a bargaining chip, betting that a man would regret it, just like I once did, thinking that if I died, my parents would regret it. So foolish. Xie Jiaosong said coldly. Suit yourself. After all, it's just taking a concubine. My family won't provide a sedan or a single person. If you want to come, you'll have to show up at the door with your own bundle. Li Qingyu widened her eyes and said, You weren't like this before. Ha? Wasn't I like that before? And didn't you still run away from the wedding? Xie Jiaosong's gaze was mocking, as if he saw through everything. Li Qingyu was stunned. The boomerang struck her heart. She ran away crying. She seemed to realize that Xie Jiaosong could not be relied on. So, she paid out of her own pocket and pretended that the Xie family had arranged everything for the wedding procession to take a concubine this time. Her parents were very cooperative. They were now eager to get rid of Li Qingyu. It seemed that even the most beautiful daughter, if all she brought them was shame, would no longer be so dearly loved. The date was set for 7 days later. Li Qingyu spread the news, ensuring that the Crown Prince of Qin would find out when she was choosing her wedding dress. I secretly slipped her a note. Without my permission, how dare you marry someone else? Li Qingyu was both delighted and resentful. She tore up the note and tossed it aside as if to make it clear to the Crown Prince of Qin that she dared to defy him. That day, she was in high spirits after selecting her wedding dress. She picked out jewelry and then entered a painting studio, wanting the artist to capture her most beautiful appearance. On the day before the concubine-taking ceremony, Li Qingyu was restless. She kept glancing out the window, then at the tree by the door, then at the courtyard wall. I had someone secretly shoot an arrow into her doorpost. Trembling at the other end of the arrow hung a brocade pouch. When she opened it, inside was the last note. Tonight at midnight, by the Blue Wave Bridge, I will wait for you. If you do not come, we shall never see each other again in this life. If you do come, no matter where the ends of the earth take us, I will never betray you. Li Qingyu pulled out the arrowhead and hid it. Clutching the brocade pouch, her heart pounded wildly. I thought, if she could restrain herself, then the grudge between us would be over. I would wish her well. If she cannot control herself, everything that happens to her is her own doing, and the enmity between her and me ends here. At nightfall, Li Qingyu's window was quietly opened. She climbed over the windowsill, scaled the wall, and carrying a bundle made her way to the Blue Wave Bridge, where she waited full of anticipation for the Prince of Chen's heir. Hearing footsteps, she turned around in delight. Your Highness, you've come. But the person she saw was not the Prince of Chen's heir. It was Lady Chen, Xie Jiaosong, her parents, and the elders of both families. The bundle in her hand fell to the ground with a thud. Li Qingyu's voice trembled. Father, mother, how are you all here? Her mother ruthlessly slapped her across the face and shrieked, how could our family have a daughter as shameless as you? Running away once was disgraceful enough. Why did you have to run away a second time? Why? Li Qingyu was sent to a temple and had her head shaved to become a nun. I looked into that temple. It's a legitimate one. The nuns there need to rise early to chant sutras and do manual labor, relying on their own efforts to sustain themselves. I thought it was a good place for Li Qingyu. I still held onto the last shred of blood kinship and did not push her to the brink of death. The day she eloped, I could have hired a few people to sell her off, or made her disappear without a trace. After all, she was foolish and selfish, but I didn't do that. I believe I should have a bottom line. Otherwise, I would be no different from a villain. I am also glad that I held on to that bottom line. Li Qingxian can still be a happy Li Qingxian without ever having to look back one day and regret her past actions. I waited for some time, finally registered as an independent female household, obtained my travel pass, and could leave the capital. Father Li and Madame Jiao somehow found out I was leaving, and they came all the way to ask me if I truly refused to acknowledge them as my parents. Perhaps they have suffered enough from Li Qingyu and have finally realized that I, the second daughter, am relatively easy to manage. But the past is the past. Today's sweetness cannot make up for yesterday's bitterness. I cannot say that every day in the past was sweet just because I have tasted a piece of candy today. No, hard times are hard times. They will not be romanticized into good times. I said, do you still remember how people used to praise my sister for her beauty and my brother for his cleverness, while I was the dull and unlikable one? My parents looked embarrassed. They were probably thinking about how they had never said many kind words about me in the past because I, as their daughter, did not live up to their expectations. Not as pretty as my eldest sister, nor a son like my younger brother. I seemed to embody almost everything they disliked. A serene smile curled at the corners of my lips. I had truly made peace with it all. A child's fortune is hidden in the parents' words. Since the feng shui here is bad, I want to find a place with better feng shui. Just as you only want a child who can save you face, I want the same. As shallow as you both are. Father Li and Madame Jiao were struck as if by lightning. I closed the door, shutting out their cries. They left together, leaning on each other, looking several years older. On the day I left the capital, Xie Jiaosong came to see me off under the guise of being my elder brother. He had become much more subdued, going 10 days or half a month without uttering a single word. Now, he was mocked by his colleagues, looked down upon, and despised by his mother-in-law. Wherever he went, people pointed fingers at him. His weakness and lack of assertiveness had earned him a big green hat. Everyone said that Li Qingyu would rather elope with someone twice than marry him. So, surely there must be something wrong with him. He had a bitter taste in his mouth, unable to speak, as if he had swallowed coptis. Now, copying Buddhist scriptures and focusing on his work seemed to be the only way to make himself feel better. But we all know that his future marriage will be difficult. Daughters from respectable families will be unwilling to marry him unless he gives up seeking a like-minded partner and settles for just anyone. But for someone who values affection as much as he does, that would be nothing short of mental torment. But these were what he deserved. He saw me off for miles and miles. I stopped my horse and told him not to see me off anymore. Annoyed, Xie Jiaosong parted his cracked lips and said softly, I'm sorry. I used to be trapped in the past, unable to pull myself out, never realizing that after you came to my home, you actually faced many inconveniences. With my current mindset, I would have thought of those things, but at the time, I truly didn't. It seems I'm always filled with regret. Qingxian, you're right. You deserve someone better. It's me who isn't good enough for you. I was cold toward you, yet I expected you to love me. That itself was wrong. Rarely, he had thought this much, but it was too late. He will drown in the old days, but I will look forward, gazing at the distant mountains. I said calmly, Xie Jiaosong, goodbye. Take good care of mother. If I have the chance, I will come back. If you treat her badly, I will take her away and make sure you never see her for the rest of your life. Xie Jiaosong smiled. All right, Little sister. I spurred my horse and rode off without the slightest hesitation, leaving nothing but dust behind. When I was very, very young, I wanted to leave that home, but only now have I finally been able to go. The sky is high for birds to fly. The sea is wide for fish to leap. So, this is what it feels like, this unrestrained and exhilarating freedom. The capital belongs to the past. Ahead lies the future. I am heading toward my future, but I know there is still one last enemy I have yet to settle. In the 3rd year of my travels, Xie Jiaosong sent word that the emperor intended to reign in the feudal princes. I quietly sent back the letters between Li Qingyu and the Prince of Chen's heir. This anonymous letter was sent directly to the Minister of Revenue. After sending the letter, I notified Li's father and Madame Jiao's family to leave the capital quickly to avoid being implicated. Because in that letter, the Prince of Chen's heir had arranged to elope with Li Qingyu. But at that time, the Prince of Chen's heir should have been on his way back to his fief and absolutely should not have been in the capital. A feudal prince may not return to the capital without an imperial edict, and the date of departure from the capital must also be reported. But the Crown Prince of Chen, in order to elope with Li Qingyu, had already left the capital only to secretly turn back and flee with his beloved. He took Li Qingyu away, yet did not cherish her, falling for another beauty on the road. Furious, Li Qingyu returned to the capital hoping the crown prince would regret his actions. But with his new love in his arms, he had already forgotten her completely. The Crown Prince of Qin is now the father of 3 children. He caused the tragedy of 3 people across 2 families. There is no reason he should walk away unscathed. Later, relying on that letter, the emperor revoked Chen's feudal estate and reduced the prince's entire family to commoners that day. The people in Chen's domain danced with joy, shouting "Long live your majesty." And I knew that family had surely done no good in their fief. Later on, as I traveled from place to place doing business, I met a gentleman who truly pleased my heart. But the moment he began tenderly envisioning our future, asking me to stay at home and raise the children, I instantly felt that this love wasn't sweet at all. It left me with the feeling that I had struggled so hard only to grow a bitter fruit. I left a letter and walked away for good. Raising children is fine. After all, they would be my own, but managing a husband is absolutely out of the question. I can barely handle myself, let alone have the energy to take care of another person. Anyone who has ever managed someone knows just how difficult it is to manage an adult. Later on, I passed by a village with my little daughter. I saw 3 very familiar people, Li's father, Madame Jiao, and their son. 3 people were toiling hard in the fields. Madame Jiao looked up, and upon seeing me, seemed to freeze for a moment. She shouted loudly for the other 2 to look up at me, and the 3 of them came chasing after me at a frantic pace. Qingxian, Qingxian, it's Qingxian who has returned. There was a hint of joy in their eyes. I patted my horse, tossed down a silver ingot, and left resolutely with my daughter. My daughter asked loudly, "Mother, who are they?" "People who don't matter." "Oh, where are we going?" "To visit Grandma. She's getting old now, and I miss her." "All right, let's go see grandmother." Horse, run fast. The fierce wind blows, stirring my hair. A child in my arms, smiling and pointing toward Chang'an, the capital. I'm back.